we do social engineering, which is, everyone's got phishing emails before and they've seen that, right? We work like real world attackers, and we'll send out these phishing campaigns to all of our customers. Well, over the past 5 years, that is probably where we improved the most in cybersecurity overall, is because all these tool sets can now detect what is fake messaging or some sort of phishing email really well. They're still not perfect, but they a lot better.
Welcome back to the Startup Wisconsin podcast. In today's episode, we're talking with Casey Cammilleri, CEO and founder of Sprocket Security, a company that's been doing continuous penetration testing for about 8 years now, and they're based in Madison, Wisconsin. Casey started as a penetration tester, basically getting paid to legally hack into companies to find vulnerabilities. But he realized that he was just one person with limited capacity, so he built Sprocket Security to scale that expertise through software and automation. Instead of testing once a year like a traditional security firm, they monitor continuously, testing whenever there are changes or new threats so companies always know their risks. We talk about scaling from a solo consultant to leading a team, and his approach for hiring locally versus remotely, and even his thoughts on building a tech business in Madison, Wisconsin. We even get into his practical advice for founders about when to focus on building versus pitching to investors, and what someone interested in cybersecurity should know about getting started. So let's jump into my conversation with Casey Cammilleri from Sprocket Security.
We do continuous penetration testing, but the way that we do it is different. We're the good guy hackers. We break into companies. We tell them how we did it so they can fix it for the bad guys, take advantage of it. But instead of doing that just once a year, we do that all year round. And we pair the technologies and the infrastructure that the company has. We monitor those for change. So if there's change in a way that impacts security, we're there to test it. If a new threat comes out, new vulnerability, we're there to test it. So that way the companies can always know what the risks are and they can identify them as soon as possible.
Awesome. That's cool. So now I'm curious how this all started. So how long has it been now since you've been in business?
Oh, geez. About 7-8 years.
Yeah. That's awesome. Congrats, by the way. I think that's not, it's not easy to get that far. And also I was just kind of browsing your website and your LinkedIn profile. I was like, how many people work there? And it's over 40, it sounds like.
Yeah, we're about almost at 40. We're 38, 39.
Yeah, I know sometimes on the LinkedIn, it's someone will say they work there and they don't really.
It changes every week.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. So yeah, I'm curious how this all got started. What was kind of the early stages or the moments, in your life where this is a thing that I think I can solve, or do better than what's currently out there.
Well, I was a penetration tester for the majority of my career, security consultant, whatever you want to call it. I was basically breaking into companies, and then it's a really awesome job.
Yeah. Actually, getting paid to hack and
do illegal activity is awesome. But I was I'm just one person, and I'm how can I do this for more companies? How can I help protect more companies? And I knew that I have a certain capacity, and the only way you can do that is just, get more humans to do this type of testing. And the experience was difficult. To get that experience takes time. And I was I think what I can do is change the way that we do this in the industry. Number one, why are we even testing it once a year? You should always be testing for your security to identify these things. But how can I also take myself and scale myself up so I can test multiple companies at the same time? And that was really kind of the idea behind it, is how can I just help more people? But I just don't want to have a bunch of bodies. We're already starving for, penetration testers and, in the industry. And so I was let's just maximize the ones that we have, and let's also build the automation to scale this out to help as many businesses as possible.
So so there's a software aspect to it now.
There is.
So what? Yeah. So obviously you were in your past role, before you started the business, you were using other software, I'm assuming, that you did not build to do the hack. I'm just curious, explain how that kind of works. And then how did you, when you built your software, what did you want it to be different about it so you could scale yourself, so to speak? Yeah. I'm just kind of curious how that all kind of played out.
Yeah, I'll take you back to as a tester, you develop code, but it's usually just enough to get your job done, right? It's just enough to do that exploit or break in. But really over the years, I started building larger and larger pieces of software, distributed password cracking systems, and report writing tools. And admittedly, I kind of started to become a developer and understand that. And I thought, well, if I want to do this continuous thing, I'm going to need to build the tools and the software that tells me where all the technologies are for an organization, my targets, and how they change. And so if you fast forward to today, that's called attack surface management in the industry. And that, it didn't have a name back then, but that's what I was building. And I was like, I need this in order to do testing continuously. Because if you think about it, if I'm going to look at all these companies, I need to find where all this, let's say, web servers or WordPress websites are at any given second. And so that was the ASM tool that I probably spent the first year just developing, really. So Sprocket opened the doors. I was developing that tool set that really enabled me, the tester, to scale.
When you were starting out, like who did you sell to? Like, were you like anybody, whoever I can work with, or was there like kind of a specific industry or business size? I guess I'm kind of curious, like your go-to-market strategy back in the day when you started it.
You know, after working, and this is the benefit of working in the industry for some time, is that I built up a reputation as a tester. I built up my network of the companies I was helping serve. So that way, when I did start Sprocket, I was targeting those networks, people I've worked with before. And it was always easier for me to capture business, you know, within my network, which happens to be local to Wisconsin.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, it sounds like you had the experience, the skills, and like the knowledge, the connections, all that stuff. What was like, or were there, I guess, any challenges in the beginning? Like, was it like your first hire? Like, wow, like working with this person, and like when I'm not doing the work anymore, I kind of was like, oh crap, like they aren't doing it the way I would want to do it, or what? I'm like curious, like what were the early challenges for you?
Every founder has that problem, right? It's like, I have this vision, I do it this way, you know, and then you bring more people in, right? And you want them to build in the vision that you have, right? In the way that you want, right? But really you have to trust the people, get the right people in and do that. So there's a number of struggles. Number one, I knew it was an extremely hard problem that I was going to tackle. And it's like, yeah, if I'm going to build a business, let's tackle a hard problem, right?
Sure.
I enjoyed that.
Make it extra difficult.
Right. Extra difficult, right? I mean, if you think about it, like just following all the technology and how it changes, you know, within each organization is just a tremendous challenge. So in the early years, you know, like I understood how that worked as a tester and I had this vision, but that R&D to development and then bringing additional people in to build in that vision takes a lot of communication, essentially. And, you know, it's just to make sure that we're building in the right direction, we're building lean, because you know, I'm obsessed about speed and in building this thing. But yeah, there was a lot of times where you just need to over communicate that in the early days.
When you kind of get past like basically 5-10 people, you know, obviously you have less time with each individual on your team, right? And then eventually you kind of have to have someone that's like managing with you and like getting, you know, having these communications with everybody or helping manage projects or efforts. So I'm curious, like around how you approached the scaling of your business and becoming a leader versus just being the person that's like, you know, doing the work with customers or with clients. I'm curious, like, did you leverage any consultants on leadership and like growing an organization, or did you go through any kind of programs? I'm just kind of curious on that, like how you kind of built yourself up to become a leader for a business.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a typical first time founder. So, and I came from a practitioner side, and I'm a builder. So it's not like I've done this over and over and over, right? So I didn't have some of that knowledge. So I leaned on resources that were available, and that, you know, was SOAR locally, and they kind of help, you know, provide some sort of mentorship because they've been there before.
I'm actually not familiar with it. If you want to, it's called SOAR.
It's called SOAR, and I probably should know what the acronym stands for, and I absolutely don't remember. But really, it's a collective of basically leaders, founders, CEOs that have been through been through this and done it before.
Sure.
A lot of them are, either retired or exited in some fashion, and they just want to get back to the community.
That's amazing. That's cool.
Which is awesome because, it's like I have these challenges as I'm growing, and they're like, oh, yeah, been there, done that before. Here's a couple things to think about.
Yeah.
So that was a resource. Local community was a resource, but my advice would probably be to just self-reflect on what you're good at and what you're not good at, right? And then what you're not good at, make sure you do it enough to understand what needs to be done, but then bring in outside help. So to answer your question of like, who else did I lean on? I ran the books, financials and everything myself, and just typical bookkeeping, and I'm like, dude, that's not where my time is best spent.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, I hate this right now. Yeah.
I did it enough to understand it, to figure out when I bring someone else in, like, what am I looking for? And that was probably the first thing I actually reached out. Marketing being second, because I just need some help building things on the marketing side. And then I believe my first hire was actually a revenue generating. Actually, that was my second hire, was revenue generating sales rep, because I as a founder, you should be able to sell whatever you build, and you should be the best salesman at that. But you got to do all these other things too, right? And so for me, I wasn't nurturing those deals, wasn't being in communication enough, and I realized I'm really not good at that. Like, I better serve the business, in the product and engineering side. So that's where it's like, just be self-reflective of like what you're not good at, and then bring help in or hire for those roles.
Yeah. I was also kind of looking at like the makeup of your team and like kind of where they live. Like, this is something that, we experience even at Headway as an agency. It's like, okay, the talent, we try to have as much local talent as possible, but at some point, like, the pool kind of dries up. So I'm kind of curious if like how that has been for you, or if, thinking about company culture, right? Like, hey, we want to be able to get people together. We want to, have opportunities for people to hang out face to face and hopefully increase employee retention, all that kind of stuff. So how have you kind of approached that, like finding the talent you need to kind of, because I think you have 7 openings right now, I saw.
Yeah.
So it's like, so if anyone's looking for an opportunity, check out their postings. But yeah, so I think I'm just curious, like, how that's kind of been for you and how you've kind of navigated that over time. Yeah.
Yeah. We always look for local if we can.
Yeah.
But we also understand that, we want to hire the best as well too. We want, the team wants to work with the best as well. So we want to hire local if we can, and we prefer that. And there's some positions that we just don't waver on. It's like, absolutely needs to be local, right?
Sure.
So for our head of product, for example, is like, we knew that, that hire had to be here, right? It had to work, had to collaborate in person, because we know that's the best way to move that forward. But other times it's like, looking for penetration testers. It's like, well, you're going to dry up the pool locally so far. And so we know that, like, okay, we'll go remote on those. But yeah, you just gotta, local's great, but it doesn't need to be local.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm also curious around how you just kind of approach your company's culture. Like, what kind of activities do you do? Do you do any like company retreats? I'm just kind of curious how you guys approach kind of that stuff.
Yes. So you have to kind of manage culture from a couple different perspectives, right? It's really the people help develop the culture, leaders and their behaviors morph that, and you have to provide an environment that is great to work for, right? And so all of that goes into culture. And the way I think about it is, you're going to have local employees and you're going to have remote employees, right? So you got to do things that work for the whole company, whether you're remote or local, which remote can be tricky, right? Like we've all experienced that, like, virtual happy hours only go so far, right? But like, is there other ways that you can engage remote employees? So it's doing all hands, flying everyone in, or flying maybe just the teams in and getting them together in person is important. We just did the Crazy Legs race here in Madison. So like, we have a lot of runners on the team. So it's like,
cool.
All right, let's get together and let's run. And I'm not a distance guy, but I survived.
Nice.
But, and we're just doing just yesterday, I sent out a message to a company picnic in the summer. So you just have to,
Yeah.
you just always have to keep a pulse on culture. Definitely overinvest in people.
Yeah. Today's episode is brought to you by Headway, a digital product agency based in Wisconsin. Do you need to design and build a world-class user experience for your software, but feeling like you just can't get there on your own? That's where Headway comes in. We're the folks who help ambitious startups and enterprise teams bring their product ideas to life through design, development, and product strategy. We don't just give you user interface designs and leave you to figure out the rest. We work with you and your target customers to create beautiful user experiences, build scalable design systems, and provide Silicon Valley level talent to get it done right the first time. Whether you're launching a new software or just looking to add features, we've got your back. We've worked with startups in industries like logistics, healthcare, fintech, and edtech, helping them solve their biggest software challenges. And here's the thing, no matter how complex your product is, we can help you gain clarity and get the job done together. We're so confident that we'll be the right fit that we offer a 50% money back guarantee if you don't think we're working out within the first 45 days. Ready to see how we can help you and your team? Just head over to headway.io and book a free consultation today. You obviously had a vision in the early days of the business, and obviously over time that vision either comes to fruition or evolves or matures. So I'm curious like how the vision of the business has changed from day one to like now we're looking forward to the next 3 to 5 years. You know, how has that been for you to change the vision as it evolves and the team size changes and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. It especially we often say this even in the hiring process, like, you know, is like you're ready to work at an extremely fast paced, you know, company because IT changes rapidly, but IT security even changes quicker, right? Like, you know, just today there's going to be, you know, hundreds of different vulnerabilities that come out, right? How do they affect our customers? But then the way you go about testing that is different, right? So like, it's just constantly changing and evolving. It's my job to be looking into the future of the vision to make sure that, you know, we're staying ahead of things. So yes, I'm going to say the word AI, right? Because everyone says that, you know, what can that do for us? How is that changing our industry? How does that impact our roadmap? All those things as a founder and a builder, you need to be thinking about, right? So from the beginning, it used to be, this is simple, you know, do X, Y, and Z. And then over the years, things change. And I think the greatest example of that is, you know, we do social engineering, which is, you know, everyone's got phishing emails before and they've seen that, right? We work like real world attackers and we'll send out these phishing campaigns to all of our customers. Well, over the past 5 years, that is probably where we improved the most in cybersecurity overall, is because all these tool sets can now detect what is fake messaging or some sort of phishing email really well. They're still not perfect, but they a lot better. So when we send it out to all of them, company A will basically say, hey, this looks to be fake. I report that, but it shares it with the whole platform. So if you think of like these technologies that analyze email, a lot of these companies buy the same type of technologies, but the technology is sharing that threat intel information across all. So we used to send that and everyone would click, we'd get, you know, either payloads or, you know, some sort of remote command and control in the environment or their credentials, whatever we're going for. Now it's, we send that, one report says malicious and then boom, it's dead everywhere. So like, that's a great example of like, when I started Sprocket, you know, it was easy. It was like shooting fish in a barrel, but now it's not easy. Now it takes a lot of time to set it up, a lot more time and effort to evade those controls to get it in. And then once you do get it in, if it gets burned, it's burned across all of our clients. So like, you need to be thinking, okay, what is the next era of things, you know, like how do I bypass that? How does this affect the thing I'm building? And so now it's kind of changed our strategy of how we deliver that type of testing. So that's kind of on the product side. As on the team side, you know, in building a company, you become scrappy, and then you have multiple people doing multiple roles, but as you grow, right, those roles narrow. You put in more frameworks, you know, heck, we have we have training, manuals now for exactly, it's HR isn't just meeting with Casey and like doing some things anymore. It's an actual more formalized, structured process. So that's just typical company growth.
Yeah. I am curious around, because last night you mentioned the meetups, Security is what it's called, or MadSec. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we call it MadSec, but it's the Madison Information Security Group.
Yeah. How did that get started? How long have you been doing that for?
I think almost 20 years. I took it over. I'm not the original founder. But I took that over, I think 20 years ago, and just kind of kept that moving, right? Madison has a really great information security community, and just having events and getting people together and having other people speak and share information is awesome. So it's like, no matter if you're like really into the weeds in information security, or you're like, hey, I'm running a business and I'm like, I got to do something in security. Where do I start? Like that's a group to check out.
Okay. Yeah. How did you get involved originally? So I'm assuming you went to school for like IT, and then it was like, I guess, like, where did you kind of run across it? How did that happen?
So if you go all the way back to like when I was a kid, like, what are you going to be when you grow up?
Sure. Yeah.
I was either going to be a welder or I was going to work with computers.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm going to work with computers. It just seems like the better approach long term. And, if you ask my brother, he would probably tell you, that I'm a really annoying younger sibling because I always took apart the toys to figure out how they work. Right. So like kind of naturally, the curiosity, the creativity, the computers aspect morphed me kind of towards the route of like, okay, I could do IT, but like, how can I break these systems? How do they work? Right. Yeah. And that led me closer to the offensive penetration testing side. And then I did a couple collegiate cyber defense competitions, which is a great program.
Interesting. I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's basically a giant game of blue team defenders, red team pen testers, essentially. Okay. And then they give you our business injects. And so as a college student, you're in there and you are competing with other schools and teams, essentially, to get the most points and defend against the pen testers, essentially, and keep your network secure. So I started on the blue team and I did that. I was like, this is awesome. I love it. Now fast forward today, now that I'm in the industry, I don't do it anymore, but I used to do some of the red team, the pen testing side.
Yeah.
So being involved with things like that really helps solidify like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. If today, like if someone was maybe like in an IT program or going to start one, and then they're hearing about this, like, oh, actually that like security seems like really fun and interesting and challenging. Like what would you recommend them to do? Like, oh, join those challenges. Or like, I'm just kind of curious if they're like, hey, maybe someday I could work at a place like Sprocket Security or something like that. Yeah.
The very first thing to ask yourself is, am I a life learner? Like, do I like learning new things like every day?
Yeah.
And you need to have that discipline in order to succeed because it changes so quickly and you need to learn those new things. So if you go to school for it, you're going to learn some fundamentals, but as soon as you get out of school, that's dated information, right? Because it's constantly moving. And so it's up to you, part of your job, to constantly be learning these new things and engaging. So number one, you better like that.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of like free challenges out there that you could do and start today. So there's something called Hack the Box where you can sign up for that. And it's basically like capture the flag challenges and other challenges. It's like, how would you break into this computer, this system, or how would you abuse this technology?
And this is all virtual, like
all
online?
Virtual.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And that's not the only one. There's a bunch of other ones out there like it. But that is a place to be like, okay, I'm interested.
Mm-hmm.
You might want to do some reading, and start to get the fundamentals down before you just go hacking. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you may not have the greatest experience. But a lot of those have walkthroughs, and there's YouTube nowadays.
Sure. Yeah. Is there? So a lot of this, when I'm hearing it's like, oh, it sounds like it's all systems and like company data and stuff. What about? Do you work on anything related to like hardware security? Like, for example, buildings have hardware that's connected to the security of the door, things like that, or just machines and stuff like that. Like, is that also a space that you work in?
We don't specifically. Do we have the capabilities of doing that type of security testing? Yeah, because we have the talented team that could do it.
Sure.
So we have done it before, but where we're really focused on is the continuous aspect. Like how can we look at, the infrastructure and web applications over and over and over to really minimize that gap. And when you look at hardware, it doesn't kind of fall into that realm as well. So we're kind of focused on that continuous side of things, but there is a need for that.
Yeah.
Everything's connected to the
internet. Because it's like just like all the wireless data interchanges you can have with phones and everything too. It's just, it's kind of crazy. Like so many things are credit cards or wireless net. It's just, there's so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. So I'm actually curious around just, being a founder in Madison or in Wisconsin, overall, it sounded like your experience has been pretty positive. But I'm just kind of curious, like, what do you really like the most about being a founder and growing a business in Madison?
The people you get to work with. I mean, we're in the Midwest. The Midwest values just come through so strong, right? Great work ethic. There's a lot of resources here. As a founder, you should be resourceful. Like, even if they're not right in front of your face, if you go digging, you'll find them. If you go talking to people, you'll find them. But what I like about building here is it doesn't, especially in tech, it's not the typical coast or valley style. There's a lot of good talent here in tech, and pair that with the good working, hardworking values and great people, you can build awesome companies here.
Yeah. Is there something that you feel like throughout the last 8 years that you wish, was better or could be improved, I guess, whether it's Madison or Wisconsin as a whole? I'm just kind of curious, I wish there was more of this for the community.
Probably the thing I wish for is, I guess it's a little selfish.
It's all good.
Is the fact that, if there could be a larger pool of that technology talent, like that deep technology. I mean, we have health tech, locked down pretty good from all the spin outs of Epic and everything.
Sure.
So we have good engineers, right? But a lot of it is either kind of that manufacturing side or that health tech. Like, let's get just some more other types of industries in here related to tech, right? Wouldn't it be cool if there are some AI startups that are happening, in Wisconsin? And there are, but if there was more of them, right, we would have probably a larger talent pool of individuals deep in that type of tech space.
Yeah. What do you think that could look like a solution to making that a thing? I'm just curious. You don't have to have an answer.
I don't think I have an answer.
Yeah.
But if I had to take a guess at what would actually fuel that the most, is probably more investment, more capital being pumped into these startups that are building, right? We're fortunate enough to have investors here from the Midwest invest in us and make some connections. And we just need more of that, I think, to really fuel that growth.
Something I've thought about, which obviously there's a handful of public pitch contests that happen across the state where the prize is, a little more substantial than $1,000 or $2,000. I'm always curious, how would you feel if there was hey, every quarter or twice a year, or there's more than what there is now? There's for example, Telecom Tech just did the $1 million. That's oh, we're going to get some applications, and then after you get this, you then now have to work out of Wisconsin for the first year or whatever to really pull in people. But what if we had more pitch contests like that, where it was hey, we're going to pull people in. And when you get into that pitch contest, it's not only, hey, you can win 100K or 50K or whatever it may be. You're also going through the starting block program at the same time. So we're not only giving them the capital, we're also helping them carve out their market, carve out their solution and everything. Cause they could be pitching from just whatever ideas they had. But what if we could really hone those pitches in? And then they're oh, the more they realize oh, I love the Madison startup community.
Yeah.
I love the support I'm getting. Once I get this capital, I kind of want to stay here. Yeah. That's kind of an interesting thought. I was do you feel that could be an interesting approach?
I think so. share my thoughts on
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just curious. Again, we're just speaking out loud.
Yeah, as a founder, I'll share what my thought process was on all this, and first time founder too, right? So like, I would look at a lot of those, like, hey, do this thing, go pitch, win $5,000, even $20,000, something like that. I started Sprocket Security with like $40,000 in cash, and I bootstrapped it, right? For 5 years before I took outside investment. The way I looked at that was like, you're right. It needs to be a larger dollar amount to get my attention to do it. Because for me, I always kept asking myself, I could do that. I would probably learn something from it. But really what I need for my business right now is I need sales. And so a part of me is like, I could spend the time and effort acquiring a customer that gives me $20,000 of revenue way easier and quicker. And so I always devoted my time to doing that. Now that was my business. And so I didn't really participate in a lot of those. Maybe I should have, maybe I could learn some things in retrospect and move faster in the business. So I'm not saying don't do those things. I'm just saying analyze where your time is best spent, and also assess where you have gaps in knowledge as a founder too. And then does it make sense to do those things? But if more of them had a price tag of $1 million, I would devote more of my time to some of those things, right? Learn some things, get some capital to build. But for me, it was like, just sell the thing you're building.
Yeah. I think, it's because there's obviously two paths. There's like I just need to pitch the idea and show there's market opportunity and show the business model and like get an investor excited enough to be like, yeah, I'm willing to bet on you. Yeah. Otherwise, there's the other path where it's like, which again, there are also VCs that are like, we need evidence of revenue already before we even think about, because they're a little more risk averse in their investments. But like, how do you convince somebody or like, really change someone's mind on like build then sell, or it's like, because I think that's a lot. Most people think like, well, I need something to sell, versus like, no, like if you just have the concept and you can pitch it to them and say, hey, this will be ready in 3 months, would you be willing to be my first customer? But then but show them like what they'll really get out of this thing. Like, how did you? So for you, it was like kind of service based. It was service based, but tech enabled with software.
Yes.
So like you're obviously doing, like you're taking your skills and your time and your energy to execute in the early days. The software has become a bigger part of that. But for someone that doesn't have software and they're trying to sell and they don't have the expertise, they're just like, oh, I need to build this platform. And then, I'm providing value. So like, how do you think about that with somebody, like with a founder? Like how would you explain that to them?
I would probably just focus on, the numbers don't need to be big, right? You can do small experiments and learn, right? And so, and number one, everything is going to take much longer to build and do than you think, right? Acquire, for me, I wanted to acquire 10 customers in year one. That didn't happen for me, right? Like I just want to build these features and hit this roadmap, right? Well, that took longer than expected, right? But the way I was thinking about things is like, if I just think small, fast, iterations, lean, even on the business financial side of things, right? Can I get that first customer with the MVP that I put out, right? Okay, now I can. Now I have some revenue. How do I deploy that and to continue to build? That way, no matter where you're at, if you can basically say, this is how I'm running the business. This is how I'm thinking about the spend. So you have something to show. Sometimes an idea is just not enough for an investor, and it kind of depends, on what you're building. For me, it was software as product, it was easy to just start building, right? It didn't cost me things. I didn't need a warehouse and a bunch of inventory and, $100,000 machinery, so like different business, so take it with a grain of salt. But I often think like, let me show you that I can build something, sell something to a market, fill a need. Let me show you how I can run a business and run the numbers to make this profitable. Because, what investors are really good at is doing their due diligence and saying, let me expand on this. Let me do my due diligence. And, what does this look like in a model if I blow this business up,
Yeah.
And then it's easier for them to be like, I'm going to invest in you and your business. And that's kind of an approach I took. I ran Sprocket for 5 years. I, was, I ran it. It was profitable since day one. Those are interesting things. You can do them with shorter time frames, and smaller numbers, definitely, and then capture that investment to grow quicker. I just want to make all the mistakes with my own money first.
Yeah, for sure. So now that you're a more mature business, but obviously you're in an industry that's always evolving and changing, how do you kind of innovate, or when you already have commitments to customers in your current product and your current service offering, how are you finding time to say maybe add a new feature or to add a new service, or how do you kind of make time for that?
Yeah. It's so important what you say no to. Right? That's kind of like a product 101 thing, right? You spend a lot of time saying no to make sure that you do build the things that you want to in the roadmap. But then also the roadmap doesn't necessarily need to be fixed. And I think that's a hard thing for cybersecurity at the rate it changes, is that, I believe that this is what the roadmap's going to look like 12 to 24 months out. However, for example, what is AI doing in this space and how it's changing, right? You can try to get ahead of that, but will you be right? So you need to be flexible a little bit. You need to understand where you're going to say no, where you're going to focus on product, and then you need to talk to customers, right? You need to understand what do they want, because they're paying you for the thing you're building, right? And then that's your job as the founder, the builder, the visionary, is to, what are we going to do next? How are we going to stay ahead? Invest in R&D and innovation as well to help make those answers a little bit more clear and to keep your business.
Awesome. Well, I think we can wrap things up. Thanks again. How can people learn more about Sprocket Security if they're curious for their own business, or if someone wants to apply to one of the openings? Just kind of whatever you want to share.
www.sprocketsecurity.com. We have everything from careers out there to learn more about our platform and what we're building, how we can help companies. I'm on LinkedIn, Casey Cammilleri. I'm pretty accessible there. So if you have some founder building specific questions, definitely happy to answer those.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, man. It was a great convo. Loved it.
Thanks, Jacob.
Cool. Thanks for joining us on the Startup Wisconsin podcast. Want to support the show? Don't forget to subscribe and get updates. If you're feeling generous, you can share, rate, and review our podcast to help others find us. All right, folks. Until next time, let's keep moving Wisconsin forward.